Hey guys, it's Harrison, and welcome to episode 3 of the Awkward Sports Podcast. I'm here again with Josh, and as usual, we come here with a topic. This one we've all been kind of waiting for a bit, and I'm not gonna lie, Josh, it feels more like it's about damn time, as Lizzo said, than oh my God, can you believe this news? For the record, it's Aaron Rodgers going to the New York Jets.
Also, and LeBron said it too when he won his first title in Miami. No, but yeah, Aaron Rodgers going to the New York Jets. Obviously, the Jets have been, pursuing him actively all throughout the offseason. Going back to even when, Sauce Gardner was tweeting out that they would, destroy the cheesehead, just trying to recruit him to New York. And honestly, I'm not really surprised that it's happening and it's happened right now because this Thursday, April 27th, as we all know, is the NFL draft. And one of the most popular topics that was been discussed in this trade negotiation process was draft compensation for the New York Jets, for the Green Bay Packers. Packers wanted a first round pick. The Jets didn't necessarily want to give one up. They found a way to come to an agreement where both teams can still maintain a first round pick. But again, we kind of knew that this was coming soon. Why? Because the draft is happening this week. So with all that compensation, you kind of have to get that trade done ahead of time. So at least the teams can kind of draft who they would want to, or else if you had done it afterwards, it would have been this whole, one team drafts for another and it would have been a whole mess.
Yeah, and just for the record on those first round picks for you guys, it was essentially two middle round first round picks were swapped. What was it, the 13th and the 15th? I believe were swapped. The Packers
Yes.
giving the 15th overall pick to the Jets and vice versa. The Packers agree, and I'm just pulling up some of the details in an ESPN article. The Packers agree Monday, which is today's dates, to deal quarterback Aaron Rodgers for their 2023 first round pick, the 15th overall pick, a 2023 fifth round pick to the Jets for the New York Jets 2023 first round pick, 13th overall, the 2023 second round pick, which will be the 42nd pick overall, and this year's sixth round pick, which is pretty damn close to Mr. Irrelevant. There's also a conditional 2024 condition pick in there that becomes a first if Rodgers plays 65% of the plays this season, which in theory means that pick is going to the Packers.
Yeah, so basically to restate basically everything you've been saying, according to Adam Schefter, the trade compensation, Aaron Rodgers, the New York Jets get Aaron Rodgers, pick number 15, the 2023 fifth round pick, which is number 170 in this year's draft. Green Bay in return gets pick number 13 in this year's draft. So yes, the Jets move back 2 spots. Packers move up 2 spots in the first round, so they swap those picks.
Not too bad moving down just 2 spots and you get Aaron Rodgers.
Not bad at all. And also a 2023 second round pick, which you mentioned, at number 42, a 6th round pick, number 207. And of course, the conditional pick that you were referring to, that is in 2024. It is a second round pick as it stands right now. It will become a first round pick for the next year's draft if Rodgers plays at least 65% of the offensive snaps. So yes, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, and, the Jets obviously, get the production out of him, get at least 65% of those offensive snaps, that pick will become a first round pick that will go to Green Bay. So obviously, big deal for both sides. The big hang up, obviously, it looked to be confirmed true, where the Green Bay Packers wanted a first round pick in return, but the Jets on their end wanted to make sure they still had one of their own. Ultimately, I think time kind of ran out. I think the Packers were hoping to not have to give up a first round pick. I think they wanted the Jets without having to give theirs back. But the Jets really knew they had the leverage in this situation with Aaron Rodgers wanting and expressing his desire to go there to kind of keep that up there, keep that ask where it was. And ultimately, they only had to move down 2 spots, at least in this year's draft.
Yeah, and I feel like that conditional pick's pretty fair. Like you're guaranteed a top 60 pick, an extra top 60 pick no matter what. or I guess top 64 pick. I'm not going into the exact number here, but I want to make sure the number of picks in each round is accurate. But, with a chance for it to become a first round pick on what feels like very reasonable terms if you're the receiving team or of the pick. Like, look, I feel like asking for 65% of plays from Aaron Rodgers is not really a lot. Like, I know he's had some years where he had some freak injuries and he missed a lot of games, but all in all, I feel like even at his age, you can easily expect somewhere above 90% of plays to involve Aaron Rodgers. So it's almost like basically giving them a glorified guaranteed first round pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously instantaneous reaction, my trade grades, obviously for these two teams. Obviously, I think the Jets get an A. You get a guy that comes in, you can compete in that tough division that they're in, which is the AFC East. Quarterback time and again has performed at a high level, won a number of MVPs in an era with so many talented quarterbacks. So the Jets kind of know what they're getting with a healthy Aaron Rodgers. That is somebody that will put them right into the contention circle for them to be able to compete for Super Bowls. For the Packers, I give them a B, which could also turn into an A just because of the kind of situation they were in. They kind of had their hands tied. Aaron Rodgers obviously expressed desire to go to the Jets. Obviously, with that being said, a lot of other teams aren't going to make a move for Aaron Rodgers, given those comments. Definitely not giving up a whole lot to do so, but getting that conditional pick that I think, which obviously would work out for the Jets, I think also works out for Green Bay. Getting another first round pick out of it, possibly, if Aaron Rodgers performs at a high level, or at least performs and actually gets to step foot on the field more than 65% of the time. I think that's a great ad for Green Bay. And I also want to make it a point that, for people out there, Green Bay is not at all, I think, in a rebuilding phase. I think
it's more of a retool.
Exactly. And what we saw last year, obviously, granted, Aaron Rodgers makes a big difference when he steps into the field on any given Sunday, but their young receiving core with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. Christian Watson, I think, is up and coming, top. He's got a potential this upcoming season to be a top 15, top 20 receiver. He showed out last year with a number of multi-touchdown games. And I do think, I saw a little bit of Jordan Love, and I've kind of been standing behind him since they drafted him out of Utah State. I do think he's the real deal, and I think that he's got the playmakers around him. And Green Bay now has a middle-of-the-pack first-round pick where they can go out and get another weapon, like a tight end, which I think that's what they desperately need. So I think that Green Bay has some pieces there in place. That division is still up in the air. We do like Detroit, but they have had now a couple of players suspended because they violated the NFL's gambling policy. Chicago, obviously, with Justin Fields making a trade back in the draft. And, of course, the Minnesota Vikings. Are they sure that they have an answer at quarterback with Kirk Cousins? I'm not so sure, despite the other weapons they have around. That division is in large part up in the air. So I still give Green Bay a good shot to just be in the mix in the NFC North.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And it's kind of hard to say that the Vikings don't have a shot with Kirk Cousins, because they're definitely a team that with him, they will probably make the playoffs more times than not. It just comes down to what do they actually do in the playoffs, and the answer is typically nothing. But with the way the Packers set up this trade, because we already know they have their quarterback, and we'll get more into Jordan Love here. It really is all about having the capital to build around their new quarterback. Green Bay is not in unfamiliar territory with the whole, you have a guy sit for 3 years behind your previous great quarterback. Here's the next guy. It's Aaron Rodgers doing the same thing when he was behind Brett Favre. And I was just pulling up some of the numbers here just to read them to you. And they're honestly more similar than you think. Both of them played about 3 seasons. Well, they didn't play 3 seasons. They sat 3 seasons, played a couple games in there. The difference is Aaron Rodgers played about half the games of Jordan Love, and the difference is 7. Not quite half, a little more than half. He played 7, and Jordan Love has played 10. Both of them threw the same number of touchdowns as they threw picks. Aaron Rodgers won one, Jordan Love 3 touchdowns, 3 passes, about the same passing yards adjusted to the number of games played. Maybe Jordan Love has a little bit more, but there's nothing unfamiliar here for Green Bay. There's nothing here that we haven't seen before. And we really won't know what Jordan Love is like as a starter until he actually is, regardless of how well he did in college. I'm always in favor of giving the guy a shot before saying he's not going to be anything. One, that's just not fair to the guy. And two, what do you really know? You don't know anything until you actually see with your own eyes. Preseason doesn't count either, by the way. A lot of these backup quarterbacks go in there never playing with the starters in a preseason game. So right now, everything is lining up almost the exact same way it did in, what was it, 2007? So I almost said 2009. Like that sounds way too late. So it's all lining up about how it did in the past here.
Yeah, and I actually agree with your point about giving the guy a shot, but I agree with your point for different reasons, right? So I do think that they do these teams that draft these quarterbacks that you go through the training camp, you go through preseason. Obviously, it's not the same level of intensity as a regular season game, but I do think you can still get a lot out of who they are and what you think they might become.
That's
but the reason why I think that you should give these guys a shot is more so not because I don't think that they don't know what they have. I think it's more about, well, you spent a first round pick on the guy. I mean, you traded, you had Aaron Rodgers in the middle of his prime and you decided you weren't going to get him another weapon. You decided you're going to get another quarterback instead. So if you really believe that's your guy, that's why you put him out there. You spent a first round pick on it. And I think obviously you can use that for Green Bay. You can use it for Tampa. Obviously they spent a second rounder on Kyle Trask. I definitely think that Tampa should give him a shot, but that's another conversation before they, write that off just because of the pick they used to get him. So that's the main reason why I think that you should give players a shot. If you draft them high, I think you should at least see what you have in a real game situation before you decide to move on. But at the same time, I'm also not I'm a big proponent of it's okay to admit when you're wrong and try to start over, like the Cardinals did when they traded up and drafted Josh Rosen. It realized, well, wait a minute, this isn't really working out. And the next year they took another quarterback. That was Kyler Murray, and he's done pretty good things so far for them so far since he's been in the lineup.
No, definitely. And now I'm just thinking of the whole Josh Rosen thing where it said, like, oh, those people ahead of me are going to regret not having taken me. And now everyone's relieved he wasn't on the board to even be taken later on. But another thing I want to discuss too, just how the significance of this trade. It just feels like maybe in the last few years, we've seen a lot of veterans in the later stages of their career just being on the move. Tom Brady to the Bucks, Matthew Stafford to the Rams, for better or for worse, Matt Ryan to the Colts. Philip, if you want to go further back, Philip Rivers also to the Colts.
Yeah, not all of them work out. Some of them do. And I think that's a great point. Obviously, I think the Jets are trying to take a page out of the blueprint of what the Buccaneers did. Obviously, they had a young team, Tampa did, when they went out to go get Tom Brady. This is a little different because they had to trade for Aaron Rodgers. The Bucs did not necessarily have to do that. But they were both kind of teams that had young, promising defenses, needed a quarterback, and had a very young offense as well, and had been drafting high many times in the recent years. And now they're kind of throwing out the long-term plan for let's just see if we can win a championship now in this what would be a very tight window that the Jets are operating in. And I do think that that's the blueprint they're following, but now that means that this draft for them is so crucial. Last year, they had a very good draft. They hit on all of their first-round picks, I would argue. And this year, now it's going to be kind of like when Tampa did get Tom Brady. They hit on a lot of their early picks. They drafted Tristan Wirfs. They did move up one spot to get him. They wanted to make sure nobody would leapfrog them and take the last tackle on the board. Then they took Antoine Winfield Jr. on the opposite end in the second round. So those two picks, along with the acquisition of Brady, some free agency additions, and other trades like the Gronk trade, bolster Tampa into a championship contender with the addition of Brady. Now that the Jets have added Aaron Rodgers, you should expect to see a lot of the same, trying to get the draft right and maybe adding some other experienced veteran free agents around him so that they can be in a great spot to win this year. The difference for the Jets, though, is that division is not the NFC South. The Buffalo Bills have been there. They know what it takes to get back there. Josh Allen's an MVP candidate year in and year out. And, of course, the Miami Dolphins have talent everywhere on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a situation, but just to put that out there, the year before the Bucs got Brady, they were 7-9. Now the Jets are 7-10. The difference, let's see, they were 6 games behind the Bills. In football, that's a lot. But it's definitely going to put them ahead of at least New England Patriots, who have Mac Jones, probably one of the, in my opinions, I've never been the biggest Mac Jones guy. Probably one of the more overrated first-round picks in the last several years. And I'm sure there's going to be someone who gets upset in the comments section over this.
Well, I will say this about Mac Jones, right? So obviously the second year was a big, slump for him as opposed to what he was as a rookie. I think obviously he's one of those quarterbacks that doesn't just thrive in any system. And I think the absence of Josh McDaniels, him heading to Vegas, I think really hurt that team. And I will give Mac Jones this pass for this one reason. The coaching staff that they put together for him last year was a defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, and then Joe Judge. So it was like they didn't really take him seriously. But I am with you as far as Mac Jones, as far as he's got to be with the right guy. And last year, and if assuming that we don't figure that out this year, I think they brought back Bill O'Brien. I don't know how that's going to work. But I do agree with you. I do think the Jets are definitely going to be better than the Patriots. Patriots obviously put together a good defense each year. They know how to score touchdowns on defense. But I don't think that's going to be enough. I do think the Jets will be better than the Patriots for sure.
Yeah, and another thing about Mac Jones too, and I even said this back when he was in college, when I was reporting on college football and was in the SEC. It just felt like, when you're on a team like Bama, and yeah, you had Devontae Smith and all these other guys, Najee Harris. I remember just watching a couple of games where Mac Jones literally was just I don't think he threw that many passes and Alabama would win by 50. That's a team that could have won the national championship that year with literally any quarterback, and it just happened to be Mac Jones. But I'm going to move on from that topic now because it's just going to turn into a hate session. That's not what this podcast is about.
Aaron Rodgers.
I'm going to pull away while I'm still going out there with some form of objectivity.
Right.
Okay, so earlier you mentioned the Aaron Rodgers trade was not quite like Tom Brady because Tom Brady was a free agent. The team is younger than you versus the Packers the Jets trading for Aaron Rodgers. Do you think this is more similar to the Matthew Stafford trade? Like, I know the Rams had just been in the Super Bowl a couple years before with Jared Goff. The team is not young, but they're a little more like middle of the pack at that point, age-wise. Would you say that's more of a similar trade? I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right, but still.
I don't think I would say it's a more similar trade, but the reason why I say that is more so because, like you just touched on, obviously they were in the Super Bowl a few years ago. Obviously, Jared Goff, he had his good moments, but he ultimately frustrated McVay, and they wanted to get out from under that and just kind of bolster that quarterback position with somebody who has been very experienced and had played the position for many years in offense that kind of left him depleted year in and year out. Whereas I do think it is a little bit closer. It is a little bit closer to Tampa just because of the situation that both of these teams, the trajectory rather, that both of these teams were on before they made these additions. But I do think it's a tighter squeeze. It's a tougher task for the Jets, given how tough the division is, how they actually had to give up assets to get him. Tampa didn't have to do the same thing. The Rams also had, it seemed like, an unlimited bank account when it came to just spending. So they did make the trade for Stafford, but they also were able to bring in Ramsey, I think, and they were able to add Leonard Floyd from the Bears. I think it was a few years prior to that, and of course paid Aaron Donald. extended him. So they really handed out a lot of big contracts, and even Cooper Kupp, he got his money too. So they were able to just kind of pay everybody, and they kind of had all those other pieces situated and figured out. I think the Jets, another reason why I think they were so adamant on keeping a first round pick was because they know what they still need to add around Aaron Rodgers. Yes, they have a young, promising playmaker in Garrett Wilson, but I don't think that's enough. I think they need to bolster that receiving core by a huge margin, especially in that division when you have to play Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis for Buffalo, and you have to play Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who I could make the argument right now that both of those two players are top 10 wide receivers in this league. Tyreek and Jalen Waddle is about as good of a tandem as you can get. And when you're in a division with all those playmakers, you have to be able to go out there and match that. I feel like Aaron Rodgers can give you so much, but you got to give him players to throw the ball to. And I think that's why the Jets needed a first-round pick, and I would be shocked if they went anything other than receiver with the 15th pick now that they hold in this year's draft.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't go for Aaron Rodgers, and the first thing you say is, all right, let's go get that linebacker or that cornerback. No, everything is about building around that big pick you just got. Like we mentioned earlier, the Bucs signed Tom Brady. They go and they draft a 300-pound left tackle in Tristan Wirf. He's a little heavier than that, but dude jumped out of a pool from the floor and landed on his feet. You always go for the guy that is going to be the best players around that key piece.
Absolutely.
Another thing that actually I do find interesting about this trade, and it's a bit different from the others, maybe not quite Matt Stafford because he also went to a big market, right. But how is Aaron Rodgers just going to handle being in New York City? New York media, number one media market in the country, North America. Just picture this. Aaron Rodgers is in Manhattan. I know the Giants and the Jets don't play there, but when you're in New York City, you go to the city.
Yeah, it's right there. So
yeah, he's walking around Manhattan. He's on Fifth Avenue, or he's somewhere at Central Park. Maybe he's getting a hot dog from one of those vendors that's $15. And some camera guy walks up because he sees them, just puts the hot dog in the guy's face. And that snapshot ends up on the cover of the Daily News or the New York Post. And then you have to wonder, how is Aaron Rodgers going to respond to all the flack for things that you couldn't perceive happening in Green Bay or even in Atlanta or a Boston or a Chicago?
Well, yeah,
LA, that could happen. Maybe.
It would happen. I can assure you it would happen in Boston. But no, I think that if you look at Aaron Rodgers, obviously, what he likes to do with his free time. I don't know if I don't see that as a very common likely scenario, but I will branch off more into.
I made that up off the top of my head, just the most obscure thing.
Right.
I just wanted to more make it as New York as possible. He's shoving a slice of pizza from Lombardi's into his face.
I mean, if you look at, I think the media will treat him based on one thing, how he plays. And this isn't Green Bay. And I think that after he won his first Super Bowl with the Packers, he got very comfortable and everybody around him was very comfortable. You didn't really see the hunger element of it. You see every year Tom Brady's always talking about the next championship. Aaron Rodgers was just let me get paid. Let me get my MVPs. Let me do my thing. When coaches would call plays, he'd roll his eyes. He'd be like, I'll just change it at the line of scrimmage. It was kind of like, this is my team. This is my store. This is who I am. I'm going to be me and I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to do what's best for me. And it's all well and good, when you bring a Super Bowl and you win 10 plus games a year for Green Bay, the city will love you because that's what they got in Green Bay. New York's got all sorts of different things going on. You don't play well, you don't deliver, you're going to hear about it really quickly. You're going to hear about the retreat into the middle of the woods. You're going to hear about all the different tweets about retirement and all sorts of different things. So you definitely better believe that he's going to have to bring it. It's definitely a different animal over there. And just ask everybody that plays there from any sport. I mean, look at the New York Knicks. I mean, and it's just miserable over there until finally this year where they actually might win a playoff series, believe it or not. So I do think that, Aaron Rodgers, it's a different beast. The New York media, he's going to have to handle it. He's got a tougher division, but now the expectations are there. And I do respect him for, stepping out of his comfort zone and taking on a new challenge with the New York Jets. But now he's going to have to show the world that it's not just about him. He's going to have to put the team first, and it'll be fascinating to see how they do here in year one. Ultimately, hopefully everybody, him and the rest of his team stays healthy so we can see what they can truly be. Yeah.
No, definitely. And I'm kind of using this almost as a segue to the next question. I almost want to see Aaron Rodgers go talk to the other Aaron in New York, Judge, just because he definitely has a lot of experience with all the media on him from the 62 home runs just a season ago. Just go and say, look, name twin. You know what it's like to just have all that on you, second contract coming up, all of that. Had you put up with it, there are times where you probably went through a slump. The Yankees, after all that, didn't go to the World Series. So I feel like just sitting down with him would help too. And speaking of other contracts, what are the odds Aaron Rodgers gets another contract from the Jets after this? Or just even before the draft, before the season's even being played, what are the odds he is really there long term?
Right. I think it's up to him. I don't think the odds are going to be, will the Jets offer him another deal? I think it really is up to Aaron Rodgers. And I think where he's at in his career, I think he really enjoys to take it year by year. I think he likes being the topic of each offseason. Will Aaron retire? Will he resign? Will he go somewhere else? I think at this stage of his career, he likes that flexibility where he doesn't have to feel like he's locked into anything for a long period of time. So I think it's as good as anyone's guess what the odds are that he gets another contract, because that to me depends on where his mind is at. And I think the only person that knows Aaron Rodgers' mind is Aaron Rodgers. So I think that really depends on what he's thinking or feeling at that point in time.
Yeah, the only thing on the mind of Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. Ain't that the truth? Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I think until then, that will do it for this episode of the Awkward Sports Podcast. For once we do know what we're talking about next, we have the draft coming up this weekend. So with the next couple of days, totally expect us to be talking about that in some way, shape, or form. Big quarterback race to see who will be in the top three. We got a lot coming up, with AR, Will Levis, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and everyone now who's not a quarterback in between. But until then, I'm Harrison. I'm not sure which way it's pointing, so I'm going to do this, and that is Josh. And we will see you next time.